Hey, are you with me, Scott?
I'm with you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but how come you're little? You're little. I don't
That's
understand.
fine. I don't need to be big. You must increase. I must decrease. Really, I'm weigh so much, so I need to lose a lot of weight. But at any rate, well, I just want to say Merry Christmas to everybody because, it's just over a month away from Christmas. And you know what you think of? What I think of when I think of Christmas, I think of biblical prophecies about Jesus, and that's why we're here today.
Yeah, we do. I'm still thinking about turkeys. I'm sorry, but
a lot of people have turkeys at Christmas, so
I haven't done turkey yet.
Well, yeah, we do have that big Thanksgiving thing coming up, don't we?
We do. Do you know what day that? What date is that?
November 28th, I think.
Not listed on my calendar this year.
I think
it's weird.
Well, they might have canceled it because really anyway, they might have canceled it.
Yeah, I know why. Yeah.
The sign on the store down the street said, we'll be open on November 28th. So,
yeah. Hey, Azo Teddy Bear 64.
Yeah, Azo, we sent Dave the link, but we haven't heard from him. He may have better things to do than chat with us right now.
I know.
Although that there would be something better to do than chat with us, I can't imagine that.
Yeah. Oh, so did anybody else panic sell their Bitcoin like 6 months ago?
I have no coin, much less Bitcoin.
Yeah. I panic sold mine. I missed out on $32,000 in profits. I listened to my son. Oh, Bitcoin's never coming back. It's like, oh, it did. Who saw this come? I did.
You can never say never with anything financial.
I know. I did leave $60 in there, and it's worth like $200 now. So I don't know. We'll see if that turns into $2 million eventually. Who knows? Anyway.
Well, here we go. We have a Dave.
We have a Dave.
Hey, Dave. Is that
we have a Dave? Christ? Hey, I don't get a link till the last minute. So what do you expect? Jeez.
I gave you a minute, like 5-6 minutes ago.
Well, we didn't know what platform we were going to be on until the last minute. So
these are the things you're supposed to be doing at 5 a.m.
If you knew how many technical problems I just had with Restream's update, you would understand. Restream decided on this fancy new thing, and they think it's the most wonderful thing ever. And it is so unintuitive for a person who just wants to do what they used to do. But no, the new kids on the block want something fancy and new. And oh my God, see,
that's the thing I don't like. See, my thing doesn't come through good on Restream.
It doesn't.
Look at my image. It's flickering all around my chair and my head.
Looks like you're being beamed in.
And I got my lights on and everything.
Oh, that's nice. I like that effect. It looks like you're crackling. Like you're in the electric chair.
Yeah, I'm coming in and out here, depending on where I move.
I don't know. Your face and everything and your background look good, and you got that sparkles around your chair. I think it's awesome. Anyway, so why are we here today, gentlemen?
Well, somebody somewhere is wrong. And so we have to respond to it.
Yeah.
Or we'll put it this way, in a more charitable way. They have an interpretation or two that varies from me, and I think us.
This the same guy that we covered on Saturday?
No, this is we did it several Saturdays ago. Remember Steve Copland? I think it's a New Zealander or an Aussie who talked about atheism or talked against atheism, and then mentioned, I don't know if he mentioned it or whatever, but I went and watched his video on messianic prophecies, prophecies about Jesus in the Old Testament, and he challenged atheists to give an account of, well, who do you think they're talking to? Who do you think they're talking about? And so I decided, that's a good idea. But plus, it's Christmas, and what better way to observe and celebrate Christmas than to discuss alleged messianic prophecies about Jesus?
That was his comment to me in the comments section. Was I needed to look up, et cetera, and I said, without even looking up, I already know what Isaiah is. I'm not going to give anything away, but yeah. So yeah.
You're doing that thing again, Dave, where you start talking and you're strong, and then it gets weaker.
It's Restream.
Is it really?
Restream.
Is it really?
Hey, am I too loud?
My microphone is right in front of my face. Is it doing it?
Huh. Yeah, and then it seems like it must be echo canceling you or something. Maybe shut off echo cancellation.
Yeah, hold on. See, that's the thing. I do it every time, and it doesn't save it.
While Dave is doing that, I just want to say hello to Vesta Freya. It's great to see you. Been a while, and Nerdy Rodent.
Oh, Vesta.
Of course, we've been talking to Ozzo a little.
I saw Vesta on a philosophy channel yesterday, and I can't remember.
And I'm all turned off.
Okay, I think you're okay.
Maynard Saves is in there. And did I mention Nerdy Rodent? I think, well, if he's worth a second mention if I had already mentioned him. But yeah, it's great to have you guys here. When we get started, and I'll be doing using a slideshow, a PowerPoint slideshow. I won't be able to interact with the side chat. So if anybody has a comment or question, then I'm going to rely on Dave or Speed to keep looking at chat. And if somebody has an actual question or comment, that sounds good. Just interrupt. There's no need.
I did send Steve an email at his account, and it came back blocked or something, or it couldn't find his email address, but it said blocked. So I don't know if he blocked me on email or what.
Yeah,
anyway, he asked me to give him a heads up if we were going to do this, and I did.
Did you do it today, or is it you're talking about like before?
Just today, and I
well, cool. That's all we need to do. We can probably put a a hashtag Steve Copland or something in the
I did it two different ways. I also put a comment in one of his videos. I don't know if he's seeing those or not. But anyway, okay, I'll go ahead and put a hashtag in. Okay, go ahead, Scott.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and try to get to my slideshow. It's kind of clunky. I'm not really a big fan of this way to do it. Okay, so does everybody see?
Yay, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so this is a response to Steve Copland's video. His title is a little bit longer, but basically he's claiming to show prophecies regarding Jesus Christ. And, I wanted to get into this when we looked at 7:14, Isaiah 7:14, which is the virgin birth section. Well, that's where the Christians get the virgin birth from. It's Isaiah 7:14. And I remember when I was a young Christian, I might have been a Christian for maybe 2 or maybe 3 years, but that young. And I was at a holiday gathering at my aunt's house, and I was bored with the conversation going on, and everything. So I decided, it's Christmas time. I'm going to go look up that section of the Bible where it talks about the virgin birth. Wouldn't that be great? And so I open up that chapter. And I start reading, and I start reading, and I start reading. And I think I was in chapter 9 before I got to the part that talked about Jesus. Because just reading it as an ignorant neophyte into Christianity, I couldn't find it. I couldn't find the reference. And I thought to myself, I must be reading it wrong, or I must not be understanding it right. When it turned out I was right the whole time, but religion had gaslit me into thinking I was wrong because we already knew the conclusion ahead of time that it's about Jesus Christ's virgin birth. And that was a very important experience for me. Too bad I didn't really learn the lesson from it until I had deconstructed, but that you can read your religion into older texts and come up with your religion if you start with your religion. That's kind of a circular reasoning. And there's a name for that. The source, by the way, of the comments and verses, the prompting for this particular live stream is on the existence of God for atheists, agnostics, and skeptics, Prophecies Regarding Jesus Christ by Steve Copland. And there's his channel. That's the date of his presentation. Took me a while to actually get this together because of busyness and laziness and procrastination. Now, according to our source YouTube video, these are the prophecies that predicted Jesus Christ would be born and would be a particular kind of Savior. Isaiah 7:14, Genesis 3:15, where they talk about the woman's seed and the serpent seed, and your heel is going to crush his head, but you're going to be bruised. Micah 5:2, Bethlehem, from you will come a ruler. There's the suffering servant sections of Isaiah. And then Psalm 22:16, which is a claim that way back in Psalms, the crucifixion was prophesied. And yes, go ahead.
Scott, okay. So these are like breadcrumbs, right? There's like a breadcrumb here, a breadcrumb there. So is that the way they wanted to do it? Just throw a few breadcrumbs and give us all these different places? Or why didn't they just write a chapter called The Prophecy of Jesus?
Well, that's a good question.
Okay.
I did not design the Old Testament, so okay. I didn't have any input into that. That would have been a good thing, wouldn't it? And some people think that this, in my opinion, of course, I am not a biblical scholar. I am not a textual critic. I'm just me trying to, piece together what's real, what's not real, how I should interact with the text. So I'm just going to give my points of view about this, and which is informed by the points of views of others. Yes, but I've tried to go about this objectively, and you're right. This is kind of a breadcrumb notion, but in the Gospels throughout, you'll see little comments like Jesus reading from the scroll and saying, "This scripture is fulfilled in me right now and here in front of you." That's a horrible paraphrase, but you can go back and look. Or he was teaching that this scripture spoke about him, and then in the book of Acts, people finding references in the Old Testament about Jesus and how he had to die. The breadcrumb approach is how you find new truths and create new religions and new movements out of old material. So yes, right. It's breadcrumbs.
If I'd had a bunch of lazy students who were fallen and they just wanted to sin, and I was teaching them chemistry, then the final question on the exam, I would leave little pieces of it all over the whole lecture, the whole quarter, right? Like I drop a little just to see if they were paying attention. Yeah. So I'm assuming this is what God did.
Must be. He just
wanted to see we
pay attention. If you don't care about it, then,
right.
Well, of course, that's why Jesus took his group off into a little huddle and told parables and then explained the parables, because he didn't want those people to get it, because if they get it, then they come to God, which is kind of a strange approach.
Yeah.
To me, my problem of not getting it is whenever they cite any of these things, they don't read the prior or post verses.
Well, that brings us to the question of what kind of interpretive principles are you going to bring with you as you try to study a text. You can be talking about any text, or you can be talking about a religious text. talking about a modern text. We try to go and read the Constitution and interpret it. Well, we have a huge heck of a time, coming to agreement about legal texts. So the idea of interpretation is really important, especially when you're talking about something that is 2,000 years old in the case of Christian texts, and even 2,700, 3,000 sometimes, perhaps, in terms of ancient Hebrew and ancient Semitic, and even the texts of Assyria and Syria and surrounding lands, surrounding areas. So yeah, we have to be aware of the principles we're going to bring, which is why number one was pretty much in line with what you just said, Dave. Read more than just a single line or passage. I started with asking Mike, or Speed, to just read Isaiah 52, 53. And I said, well,
I didn't have time.
Let's go back, and you really need to go back and start with Isaiah 41 and read it carefully and be aware, of who's talking, to whom they're talking. When does the perspective maybe switch a little bit? You have to be careful. What kind of literature are you reading? Is it straight historic, step 1, step 2, step 3 kind of literature, or is it poetic and lyrical and rife and packed with symbol and meaning, and words that they use may not have as exact a correspondence to things in the world that you would expect with another maybe historical narrative rather than a poetic narrative. So yes, definitely read more than just one line. In fact, as I watched some of Tovia Singer's videos, he talked about the same thing, how Christians, they know Isaiah 7:14, but they don't know Isaiah 7. And might as well read 1 through 7 if you're going to study Isaiah 7:14. It helps to get the context, and you start that by reading the text, and then maybe learning a little bit about the people who were around and were the intended audience, if that can be determined.
I said, go back, because often when they cite something, it'll sound good.
Yeah.
Because it'll say something like, he said, or he did, or whatever. And they just automatically assume, well, the he must be Jesus. But when you go back, turns out it was Bob, right?
Yeah, and
you have to follow they
said a lot of words before they actually got to the actual quote. And all those words they say is where you bring in biases, where you can. You might actually be setting the scene for somebody here that, it's 722 BCE, and here's the king, and here, that's fine. But when you say, well, Jesus is predicted in the Old Testament, and Jesus died for your sins, and we love Jesus, so let's go back and look at how Jesus is predicted by the Old Testament. Well, that's bringing more into the examination of the text. Maybe there's a time to bring Jesus into it later, but the second principle here is allow the text to tell you what it is about. In other words, get your meaning, get your clues, get your primary material from the text. Get meaning from. And I guess I have to say that word, exegesis. Do exegesis. Get the meaning out of the text using various tools and principles, rather than reading things into. Here's my don't. There's the do. Read the lines, read the chapters, read the book, get the meaning from it. Avoid preconceived notions and biases about the text. Don't read your biases and beliefs into it, which is a struggle, because we all have biases, we all have preconceived notions, and we're trying to change our point of view to at least momentarily understand what the people who were writing at the time, what they were getting at, how they were experiencing the world. It's a tough thing to do. Doesn't mean it's not worth trying.
So I went right back to Isaiah 40, And I immediately figured out what it was about. All people are like grass. That's what we used to call pot back, or marijuana back in the day. And wait a minute now, all their faithfulness is like the flowers of the field. Like in modern time, we just get the buds, right? We used to eat smoke the whole plant. Now it's just the buds, the flower, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, I'm getting this biblical thing.
It's all about the psychedelics, and there's a lot of people out there that would agree with you.
Yeah,
this goes in line with a video I'm working on right now, with about the dragons are supposedly dinosaurs in the Bible. And yeah, I went and I've looked up every Bible verse to see what it's actually talking about. Just because it says dragon does not mean dragon.
Right.
It's very important to do all these things you're talking about, because when you do, you realize most of those references are not talking about a beast at all, and the ones that are obviously mythological, because they have 7 heads.
Now, there's this idea that I'm sure a lot of religions who have prophecies do this, but who they'll say, "Oh, sure, on the surface, this passage is about A, or this next passage is about B, but there is a double meaning to the passage. There's a hidden meaning. There's a fuller sense that you need to understand this passage. So the first passage, you also need to understand about C, and with the second passage B, there's also the meaning D. So that's a way in which many Christians, many interpreters, I'm sure there are many scholars of biblical hermeneutics, or hopefully not textual critics, but who think that you can read one text and have more than one meaning from it. And there's some ways that's true. Like, you can take a text and go, and when I've experienced this, I think of this text, and it's just a one little small piece of text, and it kind of, I'm waving my hands trying to express myself. You things can have interpretations, things can have consequences, things can have realities that derive from that basic initial, I don't want to say surface meaning, but I want to say realistic meaning. But that's really not the same thing. And we'll see this here in just a minute, where something that is talking about a localized event in time and space is not at the same time talking about something in the future. And you have to bring a lot of preconceived notion, a lot of bias, a lot of Sunday school lessons that you've already had, a lot of preachers yelling at you about Jesus into a text to get out this sensus plenior or what have you. There may be some literary occasion where you can suss out a double meaning, but you really need to justify that. That's why I'm saying notions of double meaning and sensus plenior require justification. You got to prove it to me that a particular text can do more than what it means in context. Okay. Any comments? Any questions? Is there anybody in the side chat?
I was going to turn on my camera just so you could see me nodding. But you're doing a great job, Scott.
Well, see, I can't see anything because I have the PowerPoint presentation up. I'm not sophisticated with my technology, so.
I see. Boomer.
And that guy who looks a lot younger and a lot skinnier than me, just pretend that's me there in the background there.
Anyway. I can only agree with what you're saying. So
now I encourage everybody to read Isaiah 7:14 in a the translation you use might be a little suspect. You have to be careful, but use it in a reliable translation. But read Isaiah 7:14, read Isaiah 7, read Isaiah 1 through 7. And heck, why not read Isaiah 1 through 10? I mean, really get into understanding what's going on around Isaiah 7:14. But for now, all I'm going to do is do the quote, the virgin will be with child and will give birth to a son. I'm not quite sure that this is the best translation. I think
we'll call him Emmanuel?
And we'll call him Emmanuel, and literally that means God with us.
Okay.
Yeah, to point out, the Virgin translation, it's another one of those things in the language. It's so simple that a little tiny thing here or there can mean a totally different thing and not mean virgin.
Well, these translations
simple languages like Hebrew.
Yeah. The translations play with the tense, like past tense, future tense, present tense, and so, at times you do have to go in and do a deeper language study to kind of get a good foothold. But the main things, now the idea is that if you look at Isaiah 7:14, this is where Jesus is predicted to be born of a virgin over in Matthew 1:23. And the thing, I'm not going to get into the Matthew part so far because I'm just really caring about what does this passage in Isaiah, what's it say, what's it mean, what are our expectations from it? And you're going to see that, number one, the female in question isn't clearly a virgin. And number two, this is not a prophecy for the far future. It is a prophecy about the future, but not the far future, not hundreds of years away, but it may be, I don't know, maybe a decade away.
Maybe this is about a prince to be born, right? So
that, or at least generation, some human child that you can kind of peg an expectation onto. Now, our source video made a lot of the hey, I don't know what the right phrase is, made a big deal out of the fact that, well, the Old Testament does use the Hebrew text do use the Hebrew word alma, which means young maiden or young lady or young woman, something like that. In Isaiah 7:14, where it talks about the virgin will be with child.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but there's a definite Hebrew word, betula, that they could have used, which means definitely a virgin. There's also another, I can't remember the pronunciation of the other word. There's another word for a young female that will, that will be used in the Bible on occasion. And but the word alma was used in most of the Hebrew texts that when you do a word study will source. The Greek translation of the Old Testament uses the Septuagint, or LXX, which in that particular passage uses the Greek word parthenos for virgin. Now, in most places, it is translated virgin, but in Genesis 34:4, with the daughter of Jacob, I don't know whose daughter he was, but the lady was basically initially raped by somebody who had an infatuation with her. After he forced himself on her, he decided that he loved her. And it was after Dinah was raped that the word parthenos in the Greek translation was used. I think it was used twice. So yes, in most cases, parthenos in the Greek Septuagint, is used where you can use virgin, but there is a place, where that's not so. So not clearly a virgin is referenced in alma, because a young woman can be young and married and have had sex, could be young, unmarried, and have never had sex, or could be young and unmarried and had sex at some time or whatever. She's still young. She's still a woman. She could be all those things. Typically, a young unmarried woman is a virgin, but we don't even know unless I'm forgetting. Maybe y'all can look at that Isaiah 14 verse on your own in your own
chat
Bible
seems to
software.
agree with you. The chat seems to agree with you, Scott.
Well, thank you, chat. I feel validated and vindicated, and I wish I could see your comments, but right now I'm flying blind.
Yeah, Azo Teddy Bear 64 says in ancient Greece, Parthenos was used to describe a young woman who was unmarried and of marriageable age, and was presumed to be sexually pure. In some interpretations, it's similar to the modern, and then he must modern English word maiden. So
now there was an implication with the source video that seemed to indicate, well, the Hebrew text does say Alma, but the 70, the LXX, the Septuagint, it was three something hundred BC. It said Parthenos, and that seemed to settle it for the guy. So I would place a pin in that idea. Go back and watch his video and kind of listen into that. And he's putting a lot of stock in the 70s use of Parthenos. But at any rate, so I'm just saying that the lady was not clearly a virgin. But she probably was, and whether or not she was a virgin doesn't really matter to this passage, because that's not the target. That's not the point of that's not even really the prophecy.
I know. I've been reading ahead, and then it's about some prince being born, and he will bring the king of Assyria. And then in that day, the Lord will whistle for the flies from the Nile Delta in Egypt and for the bees from the land. What?
See, my memory's not so bad about. I can't tell you the whole thing, but I was pretty sure that was about a prince being born,
it's about something else. It's not.
Yeah, it would be within a generation or so.
One thing to remember,
a nephew or whatever to be born.
Yeah, one thing to remember is this is poetry. Most of the time, Isaiah
really good.
Isaiah is using some great language. I don't know. I really want to know what it's like for a person like Tovia Singer, maybe even Kip Davis, although he's not. I don't think he's Jewish. A Jewish person who's been steeped in the Hebrew language to read those passages. Where does the poetry hit them? How does it hit them? Like we listen for words that rhyme. We listen for a kind of meter. We listen for the clever use of the language of English language, and that's what makes a good song, as well as the music, that behind it. But it makes me wonder, how does it hit a Jew? How does this poetry hit a Jew over and above, say, in the book of Judges, that just says this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, and wow,
Oh, lordy and lordy!
And Isaiah's in three pieces too. The scholars put it in three different times too.
Right. The passage, the section where, the Isaiah 7:14 is in First Isaiah, so they think that this is from the goat Isaiah, the original prophet Isaiah, son of Uz, or whatever his name is, his dad's name is, and the one we're going to look at later, the suffering servant passage, is from Second Isaiah, which was from a follower or somebody steeped in the tradition and teaching of Isaiah, who went on to write about things around I'm bad with dates, so the dates slip my mind. But yeah, and most scholars break it up like that. Most conservative, especially fundamentalist scholars, are going to say, no, it's all the same Isaiah. It's all future predictions and things like that. So
that's what I've heard numerous times.
I got a question.
No, there are three different times they were written. So.
Yes, Mike, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I have a question. I've never read this Bible thing before. It's really interesting. I think I'm going to start reading it.
That's why you need to be here, because like the conclusions you came to about chapter 7 of Isaiah, I struggled. It was a point of stress. You read through that and were a little confused, maybe had a few eyebrows raised. Yeah. I was struggling because I'm supposed to see Jesus in there. I'm supposed to find him, the virgin having Jesus, and hallelujah, but
and instead it tells you the king's name, and it's going to be a prince of that king,
something
which
about
means
butter and honey, which makes me hungry.
There has to be a bloodline. So it's going to be a relative somehow.
Okay, my question, in that day, the Lord will use a razor hired from beyond the Euphrates River, the king of Assyria, to shave your head and private parts and to cut off your beard, fortunately, also.
Okay.
In that day, a person will keep alive a young cow and 2 goats.
Manscaping.
All right,
found manscaping in the Bible. What?
Here's the kind of background that'll kind of help with that.
Okay. What?
At that time, Israel and Judah were 2 separate kingdoms. There was a king. There was a king in Israel, and there was King Ahaz in Judah. There's a country called Ephraim, north of Israel. I think that's where maybe Syria is now, or part of Syria. I'm not quite sure, but the king of Ephraim, who wasn't a Jew or anything, he got together with the king of the northern kingdom, Israel, and they were going to attack Jerusalem. And King Ahaz was stressing out. He probably had an ulcer. He probably needed Ambien or something like that at night. Right. Definitely was choking down the melatonin. And so Isaiah came to him and said, I'm going to do it in Bible bro style. Dude, chill. God's got your back. And just name it. Ask for a sign, and we will give you that sign in order to assure you that those 2 kings are not going to come in and destroy your kingdom and take away your throne. And the king Ahaz said, no, I wouldn't do that. This is a test, isn't it? You're testing me to see if I would tempt God, because you're not supposed to tempt God. And then Isaiah said, okay, all right. A little virtue signal-y there. But I tell you what, it's either like a young woman, Alma, a young woman is pregnant or will become pregnant, and she's going to have a baby. And by the time that baby grows up enough to know good from evil, he's going to be living it up. There's going to be butter. There's going to be honey in plenty, and he's going to be eating that butter and honey and hopefully doing some laps around the palace or whatever for some cardio for eating all that honey and butter. And he's going to, everything's going to be great. Those 2 kings are going to be destroyed. They're going to be gone. And then he's talking about, and God through Isaiah is talking about, humiliating people because they came out against the kingdom of Judah. And that's what that prophecy is. It's an assurance that things are going to be okay, Ahaz. When that baby that is about to be born is born and grows up a bit, things are going to resolve themselves, and it's going to resolve in your favor. Yeah, and
you've got 100 messages in chat, Scott. Chat. You got a lot of chat going on.
Got a lot of chat. I'm glad I have stimulated conversation. I hope do we see any objections to what I'm saying in there?
No, a lot of Azo was posting.
So we got some assholes.
Bible verses and
okay, whatever,
backing you up. And
okay, well that's good. But see,
the others are we're with you. We're with you.
Time that a person spends reading these passages in their own right. Now is not the time, when you first approach this passage, to say, oh, let's bring in all these other verses, all these other teachings. Oh, let me get the outline my preacher had us all write down 3 months ago and see what he says. Read these passages and see what it's saying. Diagram the dang sentences if you've ever done that. It kind of helps clarify things. But I'm glad people are commenting. And so what scriptures are being thrown out there?
He was backing up the ones that you were pointing out.
Oh, they're backing up. Okay, well, thank you.
It was just the longer version that you had up.
So. Yeah. I'm trying to just confirmation the surfaces and say this is what I see is going on. So this is what that prediction is. And the
basically a kid's going to be born, and by the time he's eating curds and honey and he knows right from wrong, there's going to be the death of 2 kings, another king, and everything's going to be cool. You will no longer go there for fear of the briars and thorns. They will become places where cattle are turned loose and where sheep run. Everything's happy. Had nothing to do with prophecy of Jesus. So did he mention? Did he point this one out? Was this one of his prophecies?
Yeah, this is one of the ones he mentioned.
Okay.
He didn't dive into it real deep, but I decided, well, let's just look at that passage. This is Christmas here, guys. This is Christians saying this is a prophecy about Jesus, and you go to Matthew, and you go to Charlie Brown's Christmas, I think, and this is quoted, and this is why we put the ornaments on the trees and the star or the angel on the top of the tree, because this is taught as something presaging the advent of Christ, the incarnation of Christ, and his redemptive work in the Christian's life anyway. But it's based on a passage that's not about that. In fact, if you study Matthew 1:23 real close, you'll see they've changed things around a bit, So anyway, that's what the prophet, and as far as the name, we don't know that this kid was ever named Emmanuel. They definitely, nobody ever called Jesus Emmanuel. The idea was that the kid is in his life, his reaching that time of eating butter and honey in a time of renewed prosperity, is that, hey, God was with us the whole time. And Ahaz was supposed to realize this boy in his life reminds me that God was with me. And that was, but that was not a far future prophecy. It was a close thing in time and space. And it wasn't something that was 700 years out in the future or whatever. I don't know the math in my head very well. But anyway, all right. Any comments or questions about Genesis 7:14?
So obviously, Steve didn't read the whole thing. So anyway, okay.
Right. I think Steve was, to be fair, you only have so much time to do a video, and if you're trying to keep your videos around 15 to 17 minutes, you can't go in. We've obviously gone for longer than 15 minutes, but
some of us get long-winded in our videos. Sorry.
Totally. All right. Now this one was something that our source video creator put a lot of stock into. This really meant something. Now this is in the garden after Adam and Eve sinned. They became aware of their nakedness. God in the garden confronts them. Did you eat the apple? Did you eat the apple? Yeah, the serpent told me this, and I gave it and the woman, it's her fault. She made me eat of it. And then, just like in any household, it's time to deal out the consequences to the kids. And after dealing with the man, the God in the garden says to the woman, well, actually said to the snake, you're going to crawl on the ground. You're going to eat dust. No more legs for you, buddy. And then to the woman, he says, I will put enmity, or to the serpent, I'm sorry, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and hers. He will crush her head, and you will strike his heel. Now, in the video, that is, the link is down in the description, so you can go back and examine the transcript and listen to it and everything. Our video creator, he said that this means that the devil is going to be defeated by the seed of the woman. Now, the seed of the woman is Jesus, and because Jesus comes from the seed of the woman and has defeated sin and defeated the devil, this is a prediction or a prophecy about how Jesus was going to redeem mankind and defeat the devil on our behalf. Now, I may be over paraphrasing a bit, but the idea of destroying is that the woman and her seed will crush your head, and you will strike his being the seed of the woman, his heel, bruise it, is another translation of that word strike. So, you're going to do some damage, Satan, but the woman, she's going to kill you, or the woman's seed is going to kill you. And so,
okay, Scott.
Yeah.
Mitchell McCall, I don't know who that is, says, I read John 12:38-31, that same Isaiah. It is irrefutable clear that it was well known that Isaiah was written by one prophet. Y'all are jumping through a lot of hoops to try and disprove the prophecy. We're not trying to disprove it. We're trying to find it.
I have not jumped through a hoop. At some point, I did point out that there were people, critical scholars, textual critics, who believe there were at least two authors of Isaiah, and possibly a third. And then I said conservatives and fundamentalists and probably Orthodox Jews and such don't believe that. They believe it was one author. It's not totally clear, and it's not totally accepted that there was just one Isaiah.
And
when I went looking, sorry, go ahead.
Nitty points out, Mitchell McCall, you're presupposing John didn't know the passage before it happened, or isn't using it after the fact, because John and the Gospels were all written much later, right?
Oh yeah, hundreds of years later. We have very little historical information about anybody in the first century Jerusalem. The stories about Christ in the Gospels was written decades later, and so there was a whole period of time where story creation, or should we say, narrative creation, was taking place. And so, a lot of things could have been telephoned in there. Where somebody has a vision or an insight about Christ, and that somehow gets added to the narrative, not in a malicious way, but in a devotional way, in a religious way, where people, feeling they're being led by God, say things about Jesus, about the disciples, about the prophets that didn't exactly go down that way. I'm sorry, go ahead.
When I went looking at, I found a lot of same thing. It seems to be a consensus that there was more than one author over a period of time. Yeah. So in other words, we as lay people, when we go looking, we try to go with the consensus, and that's what I found, that there are multiple authors over periods of time.
And the number of authors
is pretty much 1, 2, and 3.
And the number of authors of Isaiah has nothing to do with the interpretation of Isaiah 7:14 and surrounding chapters. Does not matter.
And as Mike pointed out, why doesn't it say this is the prophecy of Jesus? This is what's going to happen. Right. No, these prophecies always read the same. They're terrible. They can be anything.
Okay. Mitchell McCall says, I wonder why so many people spend so much time and effort to disprove someone they don't believe is real. Well, Mitchell, here's why. Because a guy named Steve Copland put out a challenge video and asked us atheists to basically do exactly what we're doing right now. So that's why. And the other thing is, if you got a bunch of people that believe in spooks 2,000 years after the spook chapters were written, we get excited, and we kind of want to help you guys out and correct you and get you with the program like it's the 21st fucking century, dude. Okay.
What's that Shakespeare play with Puck in it?
I can't remember.
It's on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, there's a Shakespeare play, has a character named Puck. It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember. But it's a fun play. It's a romp. It's a comedy. It has a little message, subtle message that Shakespeare had for people in the audience, or for particular readers, in fact. And Midnight something.
He was Robin Goodfall. Midsummer Night's Dream.
Midsummer Night's Dream. Okay. And I don't believe anything that goes in there, but I will, and I did, when I was in high school and probably in college, study it. And I did enjoy the language, and I enjoyed the story, and I enjoyed the fact, or I knew that that book, or I'm sorry, that play and all the other Shakespeare plays are treasured by many generations of people who look at and enjoy English literature. I don't need to believe in it to study it and to try to come up with the most accurate interpretation of it as possible in terms of what was intended, what was the meaning to the audience. So, yeah, I'm an atheist, but I used to be a Christian and I studied this stuff a lot. But now, as an atheist, I want to study the same things in light of my new point of view, my new knowledge. So it's fine for people who don't buy into a religion or should we call it just because I'm not a fanboy who likes to dress up like Harry Potter or Chewbacca for Star Wars people. I don't have a Star Trek uniform that I dress up in, but I still like to see what's going on in the Star Trek universe. This is the Christianity cinematic universe, shall we call it? And I
usually have a Bigfoot shirt on almost 5 out of 7 days a week. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't worship Bigfoot. Okay? It's just it's a curiosity.
I don't believe in Bigfoot either, but I like to hear stories about it and think about it. And occasionally I'm looking for a credible story. And
predicting the future. If somebody can predict the future, that would be fascinating.
That would be great. Yeah. But
as Mike pointed out, it doesn't say Jesus is going to be born. It says Emmanuel is.
Yeah.
If at least if the name was there, you'd say, hey, how did they know the guy's name? And then you could, argue it was inserted. Then you could prove, no, it wasn't inserted. It was before that. Okay. And everything, but it doesn't even say the right name. And then you had to move the guy from Nazareth to Bethlehem just to fulfill the prophecy. It's so weak, Give us something good. Give us a good solid one,
Well, for me, it's really interesting, but I honestly and sincerely love listening to people who I think are wrong and I think I'm right, and then looking into it more deeply to find out if perhaps I am wrong. Because I sincerely would love to be proven wrong on some of this stuff. And so when somebody says that, the Bible had a prophecy of Jesus, I'm like, what? I got to look at that. And then I look at it and I get this bullshit. And I'm just like, you're disappointing me. I want to believe in this crap.
Yeah. You can read something.
I'm going to die, but man, yeah. I'm going to die real soon. I'm just dying to fucking, for there to be a wild kingdom that I'm going to go into afterwards. Just give it to me, guys. But
yeah, I'm not.
Please.
I'm a skeptic, but I'm not that. At least I try not to be that close-minded or anything.
Well, I watch Netflix all the time because I love watching fantasy, science fiction, fairy tales, and I would fucking love for the reality to actually be some science fiction fantasy fairy tale, right? Just give it to me. But my God, stop picking up breadcrumbs and telling me that you've got proof that they prophesize. It's like
go look at the YouTubers out there that are supposedly prophesizing from God, right? And any of the ones that give specifics end up with egg on their face, and the rest of them are saying stuff like this that could, it's like a horoscope. It can apply to anybody.
Well, see, so Genesis 7:14 is a breadcrumb that is going to make the bird of Christianity starve because it's not for them.
So now Mitchell says, what do you do with the 300 plus specific prophetic identifications occurring throughout the rest of the scriptures? 40 separate authors across thousands of years.
I've got the list, my man. I've got the list.
300.
And I've been going through them. And
can we actually get back to the actual prophecies?
Yeah. Let's get back.
Because at least now it's 299. Because Isaiah 7:14 ain't about Jesus.
And we ain't getting off this stream till we get all 300 of them, Scott.
That's right. Oh, okay. Let me go put
Let's
on. Let me go put on an adult diaper so I can stay focused. And stay
Let's go.
Okay. All right. Genesis 3:15. Enmity between the woman's seed and the seed of the serpent, or the serpent. Okay. Ever hear of an etiology? This and scholars out there back this up. If you don't know that scholars think it's an etiology, a story in story form, it's an explanation of why there is enmity between people and snakes. That's a kind of thing. That's a kind of literature. Now you can make it mean more, but at its root, at its heart, this section is an etiology. It's not about Jesus. It's not about a savior and a redeemer coming to do away with evil. Although later on, certain Jewish writers, I think, did make it, expand into a wider reality of good versus evil, the serpent, Satan, or whatever. But at this time and early on, oh, sorry about that, guys. Low riders here. I have to go hop into my low rider and drive around town. But anyway, it's a story like many stories in ancient Mesopotamia and the ancient Near East and the coast of the Mediterranean there in Israel, Palestine, or whatever you want to call it, the Holy Land. There are stories about how things came to be, and this is one of them. Or this can be interpreted as one of them. You don't need a Jesus. You don't need a Satan. This is just about all this crafty serpent. And in many mythologies and stories around Mesopotamia and Syria and wasn't there a place called Ugarit? Anyway, they have similar stories, not necessarily about serpents, but just about how things began. And this is not an eschatology that talks about end times and good versus evil. You can make something out of it like that, but in and of itself, it doesn't talk like that. There are different ways you can interpret the word seed. And you can just interpret seed to mean offspring. And then there's a link to at least a 2-hour discussion, but maybe longer, between Apostate of the Mind and Kip Davis, where Kip Davis, a Hebrew scholar, a scholar of the Dead Sea Scrolls, said, and points out that even females can be said to have had offspring. It's not that outlandish an occurrence. And what our source video and our source creator said was something to do with, in the 19th century, later on, Mendel and folks like that, we found out about genetics, and we found out that it was something to do with the seed, and that's just not the way to go about interpreting a text. There's no far off secret meaning waiting to be discovered in the 19th century, because the language used in Genesis 3 is not outlandish, and it doesn't need a future secret revelation of what it could mean. Something about the female biology and the female genetics or whatever, it doesn't have anything to do with this passage. And I just kind of wrote out what the etiology is. Why do people struggle with snakes as they work the soul and live their lives? You can expand, further literature can expand that into deeper and more cosmic meaning, but that's not what we have right there. In fact,
it's just about snakes.
It's about snakes and why our lives are hard.
Yeah. Okay.
And there are snake and of course Kip Davis and Apostate of the Mind do a great job of talking about kind of the role of snakes in different mythologies, like in Babylon and Sumer and Assyria, and those mythical, or I guess we could call them religious contexts. Now, this is not something that prior to Jesus Christ, prior to the Christian era, Christian era, people talked about or thought about. It was just seen as a story that accounts for why we struggle with serpents and snakes and things like that. The Christians or Christian thought leaders came up with the idea of the proto-evangelium, that this is a pre-gospel. It's an early gospel form of the gospel that talks about how a redeemer is going to come and crush Satan and defeat Satan, but meanwhile, that's why humanity struggles with sin and Satan and everything. That's not what this is about. This is an idea that was created in late first, early second century CE by different church fathers, and that's basically reading your eschatology, reading your soteriology back into an earlier story to give yourself street cred as a religion. So that people would say, "Oh, this is old. It's early and it's powerful." Now, I did get capture some quotes about how different targums, which are translations or interpretations of the Hebrew, and the idea is enmity between humans and serpents with no reference to messianic figures. This is not considered a messianic passage. Dead Sea Scrolls had a teacher of righteousness that that's a whole different one. The Essenes, they believed in apocalyptic battles between good and evil, but Genesis 3:15 wasn't mentioned. The Proto-Evangelion is a very late, in terms of when Genesis was written and published, a very late addition to the thoughts about Genesis 3:15. And that is an example of reading your beliefs back into a passage when you can just let the passage speak for itself. This is where I was going to just put a few links in the description. I've got a lot of descriptions in the links having to do with Genesis 3:15, having to do with Isaiah 7:14, and
you've got a lot of links in the description, Scott.
Are you chastising me for that? You probably should be saying thank you, Scott, for providing so many links, so much knowledge and resources for us.
No, you said it backwards. You said I've got a lot of descriptions in the links.
Oh, okay, yeah. But
and you know why? Because atheists just want to sin. That's why you did it that way, right?
In fact, I'm kind of mad having to sit here and do a presentation instead of be out sinning. Ugh.
I know. Mitchell McCall says Yahweh will not be mocked. Fair warning to those who think it's funny to blaspheme your creator. Well,
so you don't have any ideas.
Kick it up your butt, creator.
So you don't have any ideas, any information to add to this, any knowledge that can't be refuted. So now you just want to start threatening us with Yahweh.
Like, nah. Yeah.
You're going neener. Okay.
How does an all-powerful being have such thin skin, anyways?
I don't know.
I know.
I mean, it's like I'm God. I don't care what you say. Right.
Now this one, Micah 5:2. I'm just going to quote it for you. But you, Bethlehem, Ephrathah, ... out of you will come for me one who will be a ruler over Israel. I did have to condense this down. But here's what this passage is about. Remember, it's a general expectation that the house of David is going to be restored. Because remember, these prophets are preaching at a time where either, where the destruction of the northern kingdom or the destruction of the southern kingdom, Judah, is imminent, or it has happened, and people are stressed, people are demoralized. They've been saying, "Oh, you can't, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, they're not going to defeat us. We've got God on our side. Look, there's a temple. As long as we worship at that temple, God isn't going to do anything to us." And the prophets, said, no, you're going to be destroyed, demoralized. You're going to be dragged away to another empire, and you're not going to have a good time. But after you've been punished for your sin, after the Gentile empires, after the nations commit their sins against you, the house of David is going to be restored. Now, this reference to Bethlehem, as you look at the passage closely, you have Micah, from his point of view, from his point in time, saying, there's going to come from, blessed are you, Bethlehem Ephrathah. Blessed are you, because there will come a king who's basically, I'm saying basically too much, who comes from the Davidic line. Bethlehem was the birthplace of David, supposedly, and blessed are you, Bethlehem, because of your association with the original, the original King David, and from you is going to come a leader whose lineage is from days of old or from ancient times or whatever. And this is a passage lyrically expressed, poetically accomplished. It's ambiguous and inexact, but it's just a promise that the Davidic kingdom is going to be restored. Now, if you're living several centuries after this, and you have a leader, and he's claiming to be the Messiah, and you believe he's the Messiah, it's easy to engineer a story that aligns with this passage, because what seems to be happening, and I misspelled Bethlehemite really bad, is that you have the life of Jesus. Jesus is saying, hey, the Old Testament's talking about me, and you're looking in the Old Testament for passages that could be about Jesus. Oh, here's the thing about a restored kingdom out of Bethlehem, talking about David. Oh, hey, didn't I hear that Jesus is from Bethlehem? Okay. And then you write the story around that thought. That's what I think happened. It's not specifically talking about Jesus. And really, for the longest time, I don't think anybody really ever expected a Messiah like Jesus to come out of Bethlehem. And when they finally put that idea together, they put it in the story. They just kind of backfilled the life of Jesus with the life, with some idea about Bethlehem. And how that was accomplished was kind of weird. Am I still connected?
Yes, you are, Scott.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any thoughts about Micah? I'm sure our live stream, our live chat has some comments.
No, not about Micah particularly, but
okay.
Mitchell's been going wild here. He's not threatening us, but he actually threatened us. But I'm actually praying for your souls. If you only knew how much grace he's given us all, you'd have some. Oh, if I only knew how much grace. Yeah, bullshit. Anyway, okay, go on, Scott.
Okay, any notions about Isaiah? Micah?
Nothing on Micah, no.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so this is the passage, Isaiah 52. I think I wrote that down wrong. We're talking about Isaiah 52:13 to 53:12, I think.
Yeah.
See, my servant shall prosper. He shall be exalted and lifted up and shall be very high. This really goes well with your idea about plants and things earlier. But
really?
Yeah.
Very high.
Yeah. So anyway, but I think they mean high and lifted up and exalted. But
maybe
this is part of an entire section of Isaiah, not just chapters 52 and 53, but starting with about like chapter 41, where once again, in this poetic, lyrical, powerful way, Isaiah is talking about God's servant. And the whole challenge here is to identify who this servant could be. That's where Copland has challenged us the most. And so we just need to kind of look at the idea of the servant of God, the servant of Yahweh. Isaiah 52:13 and 53:11 identify a servant and mention a servant. In the first place we see this, or the first place we're going to focus in on, we're not going to go through every passage, but just make a note that in Isaiah 41:18, God's servant is mentioned and identified as the nation of Israel.
Okay, and
chosen people.
The reading that I have, the suffering and the glory of the servant, that's 52:13. See, my servant will act wisely. He will be raised and lifted up and highly exalted. Just as there are many who were appalled at him, his appearance was so disfigured beyond that of any human being, and his form marred beyond human likeness. So he will sprinkle many nations, and kings will shut their mouths because of him. For what they were not told, they will see, and what they have not heard, they will understand. What the hell? What does this disfigured part mean?
Well, first, see, we're going back. We're looking at the context.
Okay.
So we're going to start
41. Okay.
We're going to start with the bird's eye view and go down and look specifically.
Okay.
But remember, this is poetry, and in poetry, you can have figures who are symbolic of the many, and you can have the many who can be symbolic of just one figure. You can have things that are taken allegorically, symbolically, and Israel is called a servant.
Okay.
In 44:1 and 2, we have a servant mentioned as well, identified as Israel or Jacob. Jacob and Israel are in the prophets. The prophets are often used to identify the nation of Israel as a whole, the people of God. And of course, in 44:21 and 45:4, you see references to the servant and Israel. Okay. In 49:1 through 6, specifically verse 3, you see this: "You are my servant in whom I will be glorified." I think originally the name Israel was not in there, but in the Septuagint, which Steve Copland really, really, really likes, the writers of the Septuagint inserted Israel in there. I might call you my friend Mike or my friend Dave. You are my servant Israel. It's called a positive, where my servant is Israel. I'm identifying who my servant is, and that's in 49:1 through 6. Now we get to the servant of this big chapter, and we have a person who's a servant. I don't think they specifically name the servant as Israel, but look, Israel has been identified with the servant in so many places that the servant that is being brutalized, that's being even possibly killed, who's being disfigured and marred, could it be this nation that has been ripped from its foundation? Its people have been moved across the continent to Babylon. Earlier, the 10 tribes of Israel, the northern kingdom, had just been destroyed and decimated, and sent out into other countries, and so far they've never returned. So
I don't know.
This servant who's been brutalized and beaten and hurt and killed and disfigured, whatever bad things are happening in this passage, maybe that's describing the servant who had been destroyed and been ransacked and brutalized and humiliated by the Gentile nations around them.
Meaning the country, the whole country.
Yeah, the country. Yeah. And even I just wanted to point out too that specifically in 49:13, back here where Israel is called the servant, or the servant is called Israel, they're referred to as suffering ones in 49:13. So it is not outlandish. In fact, it is more appropriate to consider the servant here to be the nation of Israel. Now, some people want to say, well, it's maybe Isaiah or some other prophet that, that was brutalized for preaching or something. I don't know that viewpoint very well to really do it any justice. But when you look at the breadth of these passages, you don't need an incarnated suffering individual who's going to rise from the dead. I think Tovia Singer, once again in the description, there are links, and Tovia Singer does some presentations about Isaiah 53. He, looking kind of looking at the viewpoints. That's why I was telling Mike earlier to read the wider passages, read it several times, and pay special attention to who's being talked about, who's doing the talking. And the way Tovia Singer interprets it is this is a passage where at first God is speaking, and then he's talking about the nations that had brutalized his servant, who had humiliated, denigrated, and destroyed them, are going to see eventually God vindicate the nation of Israel through the Messiah, which for him is not Jesus, but for Tovia Singer and other Jews like him is yet to come. A Messiah is going to come, and the world is going to see God vindicate the Jewish people, and they're going to go, oh my gosh, the Jews were right all along, and they're going to see that they're being punished for the sins that they committed against the Jews throughout history. And that's what that's about. Okay. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. All I know is when I read this, I don't have to bring in a first century religion that's trying to build its credibility. And find old things in the Old Testament that make them seem legit. Because remember, in the eyes of the Romans and the Hellenized Greek people all over the world, if it's old and ancient, then it's awesome. They want old ancient scriptures to be true and to inform their lives. And this was the Christian way of going back and just putting together kind of a portfolio to show how much credibility you have because you're ancient and the prophets spoke of us.
So Mitchell McCall is pushing back on the idea that there was more than one author for Isaiah, and he says just recent. Yeah, I know it doesn't, but anyway, I just want to mention that he said he just recently an entire manuscript in its entirety of Isaiah was discovered. It is complete and on display in public. There are zero discrepancies with what we have today in the King James Bible.
That's totally beside the point, and it's probably not true.
Okay.
The thing is,
anyway, we don't really care about that.
Isaiah, son of whomever, from chapter 1 through 39, writing this section of Isaiah. It doesn't affect the interpretation of this.
Yeah.
And if you look it up, you get, they call it Proto-Isaiah, Deutero-Isaiah, and Trito, or however you say that, Isaiah. There are scholars that do this. I mean, there it is. Comes right up. It's all over the place on my page.
I'll see if I can find the recent discovery of...
Yeah, well, the most recent discovery of Isaiah. And
it's difficult too. I mean, this is not an exact science.
Right.
What is that? Textual criticism or whatever they call it.
But basically, the argument for first and second Isaiah is that
the Bula, that thing.
The Bula, what?
Bula, yeah, found It's a clay seal impression known as the Bula, the most significant bill. Oh, wait a minute. No, okay, that was something else. They think they found some clay tablet with the name Isaiah on it, and they thought, oh no, that had to be the prophet.
Well,
no, I'm trying to
on
find
a clay
the
tablet, unless it's the actual text of Isaiah, but that's not.
Here we go. Okay, there was a Dead Sea Scroll containing all 36 chapters of the book Isaiah, 17 pieces of sheepskin thrown together. So anyway.
Kip Davis, Tovia Singer, and a lot of biblical, Hebrew biblical scholars know about those Dead Sea Scrolls, and they still, talk about first and second and maybe third Isaiah. There's reasons that they talk about that. They don't, and if you don't have a bias or a set of beliefs where you need it to be the same person at the same, written at the same time, the argument might be a little persuasive. So might want to read arguments for first, second, and third Isaiah. Why do these scholars think that way, and do the refutations, do the counterpoints that the fundamentalist, conservative, and orthodox scholars have? Do they overcome that?
And this was written in about 600 BCE. Is that what it is? 600 or 800 BCE?
Yeah, I think the first Isaiah was supposed to be around the 8th century BCE, and I think a lot believe that second Isaiah was maybe 100 years later.
And the Dead Sea Scrolls were from the 1st century BCE?
Yeah. The Dead Sea Scrolls were after the publication of the Isaiah scrolls.
So why couldn't the second and third pieces have been written in 600 and 500 BCE?
Well, they very well could have. See, that's the thing. Anyway. Is there was a period there before the Essenes, before Qumran, where that stuff was compiled and put together.
Scrolls are after.
Copied. So the fact that there's maybe a newer Isaiah that dates back and is consistent with this and that, it doesn't really affect the interpretation of Isaiah 52 and 53.
It's still Israel.
It's still Israel.
It's still Israel.
Serpent is still Israel. There's a non-Christian messianic interpretation of this, vis-a-vis Tovia Singer and others. You don't need to read your Christian religion back into the text. It perfectly takes care of itself and identifies, who the servant is my contention.
And obviously New Testament authors used Old Testament stuff because that's what they had.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean anything either. To cite something in the Old Testament just because it doesn't make it a prophecy.
Now,
so I just gave Mitchell a link or a wrench so he can post links. So anyway.
Okay.
Because he's been very well behaved as a guest.
Well, good.
So
good. I'm glad he's been well behaved. But like I said, this is just reiterating, just trying to understand the Old Testament based on what it says, and not what on some preconceived idea that somebody wants me a conclusion that somebody wants me to draw from it. Okay, now in our source video, Copland makes a big deal out of Isaiah 53:5, which uses many English translations use the word pierced of Isaiah 53. He was wounded for our transgressions, or he was pierced through for our transgressions. And pierced can be, and of course, what they're trying to do is, along with with Psalms 22:16, find references to the crucifixion, a predicted crucifixion of Jesus in this text. And so what I did is I went and looked in the Septuagint and realized that the Greek word that was being used in the Greek translation of the Old Testament, at the 200 BCE, possibly all the way up through the 1st century, the word being used to describe pierced in some English translations was actually some form of traumazo. Okay.
You did that twangy thing again.
Twangy trauma.
Thing.
Yeah, trauma.
Repeat your last sentence there, Scott.
Okay. Yeah. You're using a form of a Greek word that sounds like trauma, right. to translate into wounded or pierced through. And so I went and just kind of did a study. These are different forms. I'm terrible with Greek words. Etraumatiste, or something like that. Translated wounded in different places. Isaiah 53:5 might be pierced through, bruised, wounded. It's not necessarily talking about anything where you can go, oh, that's a crucifixion. Maybe somebody got an injury to the hand. Maybe somebody got an injury to the head. They were wounded. They were bruised. They were humiliated, violated. So in Isaiah 53:5, as you read along, when it says he was wounded for our transgressions, or some places say pierced through, it's not talking about the same thing as Psalm 22:16. So this is I
got a bruise on my arm.
You've been wounded, dude. You got some sort of trauma.
Right there, I got a bruise.
You are the Messiah. You are the Messiah.
Again, yeah. It's like, even if these are prophecies, it doesn't do anything for anybody to just say, this is what happened to so and so. Like I often say, if you're going to make a prophecy, how about doing some good with it, right? Like predicting an earthquake or something, tell people to get out of Dodge before it happens or something, right? These things, again, like he's saying, dogs surround me, a pack of villains encircles me.
Okay, why didn't it say Romans surround me, a pack of villains, and they crucified me?
Yeah, right? Bob is being surrounded by the Roman army, and it happened on Tuesday. And no, nothing like that ever in these prophecies.
So the last,
I wouldn't say ever. The ones like with Tyree or Tyre, however you pronounce it.
Tyre, yeah.
That was specific, and that one failed. So that's one of the ones, along with all these things that will happen that Jesus predicted, and they didn't happen before those people took their last breath. So when they do get specific, it seems to fail, and then there's a whole lot of hermeneutics to explain what it really meant.
So Mitchell is complaining that we still haven't found the Isaiah scroll he's talking about, and I asked him to post it because obviously he knows where it is, and I can't find it.
Yeah,
because
that's right. If you're going
to, I did a Google
that overturns what we're saying, then please get us a reference, a citation, actual information rather than an assertion.
Yeah.
Okay. Psalms 22:16 is another one that Steve gets into a little bit, and this is something that they're trying to make out to be a messianic prophecy. First of all, we have to realize, and I know this is horrible font. I just didn't take the time to change it or whatever. Neither Mark chapter 15 nor Matthew 57, when they're describing Jesus on the cross and he's going, my God, why have you forsaken me? Which is a quote of Psalm 22:1. None of those passages mention Psalm 22:16. The one that mentions my hands and my feet being pierced. So what Psalm 22 is a lamentation, and a lamentation is a kind of psalm where basically the writer of the psalm, the person voicing the psalm, is complaining, is saying, God, people are hurting me. Where are you? How much longer do I have to wait before you come in and vindicate me, rescue me, redeem me from this situation? And there are several psalms of lamentation throughout the Hebrew Bible, and this is one of them. But very, for whatever reason, the writers of the gospel wanted to focus on Psalm 22. But notice in both of these places, Matthew 27, Mark 15, the only thing quoted is the first verse. Now, the question that we need to ask, or I would like somebody to consider, how many people, since that psalm was penned or recited up through the time of Jesus, how many people have recited that verse in times of trouble? It's a lamentation. And when people are in times of trouble, they shout that. So even if Jesus on the cross, being crucified by the Romans at the instigation of the Jewish government there, even if he was crying that out from the cross, wouldn't that be reasonable? Couldn't that just be Jesus doing a lamentation? You don't need to say that this psalm predicts Jesus being crucified. It's a lamentation. You're hurting on the cross. You're feeling abandoned on the cross for sure. That's something somebody would say, if they could even say that on the cross, because the cross is a very torturous experience where you have trouble finding a breath.
Just real quick, I can't find any. The latest discovery, and this is from a Christian source, says they found some fragments recently, but they are from Zechariah and Nahum, not
those are
not
kings,
Isaiah,
right?
not Isaiah.
Okay. So, y'all have done some great hard work. This video, this live stream is going to have a comment section. Once we're done here, once we're done with the recording, and our live stream participant is very welcome to put whatever citations, which means links or journal articles to reference or whatever in those comments. I would love to know about that. But we're doing all the work here. And of course, I've not been able to see the live stream. I don't know if the guy or the person has provided any links or not.
The big Isaiah scroll, called the Great Isaiah Scroll, is one of the Dead Sea Scrolls. As we already pointed out, was written hundreds of years later, and so it doesn't matter. It's just a copy.
Yeah, the complete book of Isaiah is there, which means that the book of Isaiah was written before the people at Qumran tucked away that scroll.
Yes, you'll have to find us a link.
You could have had
Mike and I are both looking all over. We can't find anything.
Yeah, somebody could have put together all three Isaiahs prior to Qumran. And
so far, Mitchell, you've just made a claim and you haven't been able to provide a link, even though I gave you a rent. So we're just going to discount what you say. We did go Google it. We can't find anything. Please help us out. Like Scott says, there will be a comment session, and you have plenty of opportunity to go and show us what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't affect our argument anyway, right, Scott?
Right. Yeah. It doesn't affect the argument.
Just wanted to let him know that. Yeah, I can't find what he's talking about.
Oh, he said Dead Sea Scrolls. Yeah, we covered that. So it was in the. Yeah.
It's in the Dead Sea Scrolls. That's the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Hundreds of years later.
And the recent discovery, they were just some fragments they found in the same cave that they missed because they were just, falling apart in the ground somewhere, and they found a few fragments again in the same place. They're Dead Sea Scrolls.
Right.
So on my copy of, I have a copy of the Bible in my library, and I remember I scratched out New Testament and I put Ad Hoc Testament. Because I think it's more accurate.
You're allowed to do that. It's your Bible.
It's my Bible.
Well, Sydney's saying there's 150 years span in there. So it doesn't seem to be one person sitting down and writing it.
Right. And remember, there was time to take the three different Isaiahs, how many different Isaiahs were written.
Right.
Put those individual writings together and then distribute them as one giant scroll until eventually the people at Qumran, who were these kind of almost like monks or whatever living out in the desert, put them all together and then had to go hide them in the caves. So there was time for there to be 3 Isaiahs and then put together. The fact that there's a complete Isaiah scroll in the Dead Sea Scrolls doesn't negate whether there were 3 different Isaiahs or whether there was just one.
Right. And Russell says, why is it in the same scroll if it's 3 different authors? Well, I have, I was just looking this morning at my copies of Principia Mathematica by Russell, and I have one that has 3 volumes and one where they put it all together. Sometimes they do that. Right? I mean, what it makes 0 sense? Really? Does it make 0 sense?
But I'm
thinking, it was finished. It was
people like Kip Davis, even Dr. Josh might have, Digital Hammurabi might have gotten into that in some place. There are videos that will cover that for you, or you can read texts about how these things were put together. And if you don't know the arguments for 1st, 2nd, 3rd Isaiah, it would be great to go and find out what those arguments are, just so you'll know them and be able to communicate them. There's no harm in that. If you don't believe in 3 Isaiahs, what's the harm in knowing the arguments for the 3 Isaiahs? There's no harm, and you'll know the arguments well. Okay, right here is since we're still on Psalm 22:16, Steve Copland puts a lot of stock in the Septuagint. And there's this word, and I'm sorry for the horrible font, this Greek word up here in the title, translation of, and I think it's orizon or something like that. Orizon is the Greek word that was used to say pierced in Psalm 22:16. So what I did was I found all the places where orizon was referenced in the Greek New Testament, or the Greek Old Testament. And then I looked up the Hebrew word, and just to see how things were translated in other passages that use the same exact word and the same exact, part of speech, the same tense, the same mood and all that. And these are where they were found. Right here, I don't know if you can see about 3rd from the bottom of this table is Psalm 22:16. And you'll see that the Hebrew word in there is actually ka'ari. The ka in there means like, and then ari is just a name for lion. There's a press secretary for George Bush, Ari Schlesinger. Well, his first name is basically lion. And so in this scripture, they pierced my hands and my feet. It actually says, like a lion, my hands and my feet. It's kind of a literalistic translation of that. All these other places use the word, some form of kuru. And the reason why you have shru or kuru is either I typed it wrong or they just use some form of the word kuru, which could mean pierce in some loose way, but most of the places it's talking about digging a well, digging a hole, dig, dug. They hewed a well, or they hewed something in two. But for some reason, this passage, which says ka'ari in the Hebrew, has been, the word orizon has been put in the Septuagint. Don't know why. Don't know why it says they dug my hands and my feet, or they excavated my hands and my feet, because that's what that word means. There's a lot of confusion. It's not very clear what Psalm 22:16 in that particular portion is saying. They think that if you drop this and add that, you get kuru. They even think that some little scrap of the Dead Sea Scroll that has Psalm 22:16 in it, some little section that is very hard to see, whose markings are very unclear, might say kuru. But even if it did say kuru and not ka'ari in the Dead Sea Scroll version of that Psalm 22:16. The word is for dug or excavate, not pierce, although it has been translated pierce into a lot of the English translations. Now, the first time it was ever translated pierce was some 16th century translation based on a Lutheran, with German Lutheran Bible. They used the word pierce. And that's the first time it got put into the English language that way. But anyway, all I'm trying to say.
Oh my God, Scott!
What?
Mitchell McCall says, "Read The Case for Christ" by Lee Strobel. There's also a movie. He was a former atheist. His exhaustive research eclipses all of our abilities. Oh my God,
terrible. He's terrible.
Bozo.
He's terrible.
Yeah, that's not a credible source. So try harder.
No. You just really blew your credibility with us, man.
What do you want to know? What do you want to know about what Lee Strobel says? I'll tell you.
Yeah, Lee Strobel
in their careers studying the Hebrew language. Some are Christians, some are Jews, some may even be Muslims. Some are atheists, because we know of an atheist who studies the Dead Sea Scrolls. In the the original scrolls, they take pictures, they do plates, photographic plates or whatever of those Dead Sea Scrolls, and Kip Davis spends his day examining those and translating different aspects of it.
And look at their credentials compared to
those guys, not by Lee Strobel, who's
Chicago investigative reporter for the Chicago Tribune. You're going to put him up against all these biblical scholars? Come on, dude. You just lost credibility here.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying get better sources. There are better sources out there that that you can dig into. So anyway,
that just goes to show you how much this second-rate dime store bullshit shit that's being produced and printed on the internet. It just shows to how it influences people.
Mm-hmm.
Without, oh my God, I'm frustrated.
Now, I just want to say, I'm not trying to be mean or to anybody about anything, but Steve Copland's video that we're basing all this on, his comments and stuff, has a horrible flaw in it. And to kind of point that out, first, if you just listen to the content, read the transcript of that video, there's just so much Christianity trying to be jammed into, a study of these prophecies. Just to be very clear, because he's very picky about this, I am saying, like a lot of people are saying, that the servant of Isaiah 52 to 53 is the nation of Israel. It works. I don't need Christianity. I don't need Christian beliefs or Christian doctrines to force into that section to say, well, that's what this is talking about. This is what I understand it to mean. It doesn't have to match the life of Jesus. It doesn't have to account for Christianity in and of itself as a text, with very careful study and very careful attention to scholarly issues and things. You can interpret that very naturally in its own context. You don't need it. Now, I was looking at the comments to this video, and do you recognize this particular person right here, App Persona Non Grata? That was a discussion between James Apperson and Steve Copland in the comments of the video. And Copland says to James, "Thanks for the reply. I have studied the Dead Sea Scrolls, etc., as a theology student, although I'm not educated in Hebrew. I use the Septuagint to analyze the Old Testament, but have other reasons for dismissing Jewish scholars who reject Jesus as Messiah." That is, to me, I think, a mistaken approach. First, Steve in this video and in this comment and others shows a clear bias towards Christian dogma, and you can't bring your preconceived notions into the study of a text. What does the text say about itself? If you're going to avoid the original language, that's a much less than stellar hermeneutic approach. Studying something in Greek is not as good as studying by saying something in Greek. I mean, the Old Testament issues in Greek is not as good as studying the original Hebrew, especially when we have online material, free online material that will help you parse through the Hebrew words and the Hebrew language. And then just trying to draw specific points from a poetic passage, take this aspect of this passage, this aspect, and connect it to something that's supposedly a historic narrative is kind of problematic. How are you going to show that a poem is fulfilled by a historical event? It's just very hard to do. I hope I'm expressing myself well there. But my conclusion over all of these issues, we've covered these passages here. I hope I'm not leaving anything out. They can be interpreted based in their context and with the text speaking for itself. You don't need to bring Christian dogma from the late 1st and early 2nd centuries in. And of course, beyond, there's people in writing and saying things and trying to come up with new insights about how the Old Testament predicts the New Testament for quite a while. And you don't have to do that. Just let the text speak for itself. Learn all about ancient Israel. Learn all about Babylon, and learn the contextual part of that society. But you really don't need to say it's Jesus, because it just doesn't seem like it is. We're not talking about Jesus in any of these passages. And that, sirs and ma'ams, is my conclusion about this passage. I don't have I wish I had a quote or something. But anyway, are we still here? Are we still together?
Great job, Scott.
Well, I don't know. I didn't get much sleep last night. I could feel myself crashing. So at any rate,
somebody
go ahead.
Somebody threw me out. Somehow I got thrown out of the studio. Anyway, should I put a link out? You guys want to stick around and talk for a while? Because I got to take a 5-minute break.
Yeah, I need to fix something to eat. What with my blood sugar and everything, I need to eat a little bit of lunch because I'm starting to feel woozy.
Okay, we can get out of here. You want to get out?
Well, let's go ahead and see if anybody wants to come in or whatever.
I'll hang out if somebody wants to come in and chat or whatever.
Yeah. Do you have to go, Mike?
For a few minutes, I do.
Okay, yeah. Back. Wish we had a song we could play. Hey,
let's get the link.
Can you play your song, Dave? The song that you usually introduce your. Will that be a problem?
For Saturday or for my channel?
I like the Saturday one.
Saturday one, yeah.
Because literally, I just
for about
put a peanut butter sandwich together and come back to the table. But
and I will be gone for about 5 minutes. So, okay. Do you have a song, David?
Yeah, I just have to.
Or you just want to sing?
I can play the one that's got the timer on it.
Okay, I'm gonna go put my
go ahead
peanut butter sandwich together. Hey, James is here.
James is here.
Hey there, guy.
Good.
Hey, did you get to watch any of this?
So I only caught like the last 10 minutes. We're gonna have to watch the whole thing over again later.
Then I apologize in advance.
I saw that somebody messaged me and invited me over, but I didn't see it. I wasn't here.
Yeah, that was me.
All right. Well, I appreciate it.
I figured I should bring you along or have you come in because you were in the comments and I commented on the comments.
Yeah. So I'm not used to using this format. This isn't StreamYard, right? This is something else.
This is Restream.
Restream, yeah.
I tried to. I can cover you for 5 minutes while you're gone. I always have lots to say.
Yeah.
Go ahead and talk, James.
Awesome.
I'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
So I I tried to share a video, a screen thing. I just don't know how to send it through the rest of the way. I don't know if I need you to do it. Did it work? Is it not working correctly?
I don't think it'll pop up. Mike has to do it.
I'm sorry, James. So I should see a video on the side here.
Can we stop sharing and try to reshare?
Okay. I saw something flash up there.
Okay, 1 second. So
yeah, go ahead and share. All right, now I'm gonna hit this. There we go. There's Dr. Josh.
Dr. Josh. So I'm going to go ahead and play that, and then I'll have some commentary to follow. So this is Dr. Joshua Bowen. So he's an expert in the biblical regions during the biblical era for all of their religions, like the entire span of religions in that zone for that time. And he's going to explain here in this clip. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it. Why scholarship, not him specifically, but academia. And I've got other video clips you can watch on a different stream sometime. But the fact is that real academia does not seriously consider the input of religious apologists, even when a religious apologist has credentials behind their name. Now, if the religious apologist does real history, they do real academic research, submit real academic papers, make real academic arguments, those are considered, right? There's no prejudice against them on that front. But when they come in to try to change academia to say, oh, well, let's start prioritizing faith as part of the academic experiment, then real historians say, hell no, we are not going to change academia to suit the interests of religion, right? The facts lead wherever the facts lead. Logic is whatever the logic is. Make those cases, leave your faith at home, right? And this is Dr. Josh Bowen explaining why. So let me go ahead. Hopefully you guys can hear this.
Conclusion, it's on page 148. What I have attempted to demonstrate here is not that one way of understanding the book of Daniel is somehow the right one. So he's talking about aspects of the dating of the book of Daniel. On the contrary, scholarship is always pushing beyond today's status quo, probing, challenging, applying new data and new theory. What I have been trying to show is that, despite noises to the contrary, fundamentalism is incompatible with scholarship. Fundamentalism has already determined its conclusions. It is not seeking because it already knows the answer. If it has good evidence on its side which supports the Bible, it uses it. If it has little data, it twists and interprets what it has to support the Bible. If it has no evidence, it hypothesizes that such will eventually be found. And of course, no amount of contrary evidence is sufficient. Fundamentalism can never conclude that the Bible is wrong.
Wow. Well,
right. So that was Dr. Josh quote reading from an even more famous historian and archaeologist. And this is just the standard in archaeology and in biblical and religious histories and textual criticisms. The conclusions that academia comes up with are consistently inconsistent with what Bibles claim is true and with what believers claim is true. Now, keep in mind, we're not saying you can't have faith, right? You're welcome to it. If you want to believe in some kind of a religious narrative and work your life around that, feel free to do so. But you need to understand that real archaeology, real science, real history, real textual criticism, everything in that domain is largely incompatible with what churches are saying is the reality of the situation. Hey there, Chris Moore. It's great to see you in here today. And also, we've got Sydney Raptor in here with us. And of course, Mitchell McCall. Now, I'm not familiar with Mitchell McCall. But I'm guessing they're a regular here because they've got a wrench. I just don't know them. So Mitchell says, the old change the subject maneuver Why don't you answer my question? So I didn't see the question. Did you see the question? Anybody?
Yeah, I don't know. It's obviously a conversation that's been going on while I wasn't even able to see the side chat. But no, I don't think I communicated any vitriol. I don't think we changed the subject. The subject was prophecy, and the subject was, why you shouldn't bring your Christian bias into the mix. But.
Right. And that's the thing. In science, you're encouraged to be skeptical, to be critical, to be doubtful, to feel free to challenge any of the established ideas, right? If there's a certain set of ideas that we're pretty sure are correct, you're encouraged to challenge those if you have the data to support the challenge, right? Please do. And it's very exciting for scientists to find out that they're wrong, right? They're because because science grows by finding out when and where and how it's wrong. So if a day goes by and nobody can disprove anything that day, right? You show up for work that day, you're doing a science thing, and nothing gets disproven. That means nothing grew, nothing evolved, right? Our understanding of the universe did not progress. They love it when somebody proves them wrong. And this is a very different paradigm than in religion, where they're dedicated to the proposition that their religious narrative is 100% true, right? And so even the idea that some of their precious ideas might be wrong is threatening to them. It's offensive to them because they've been taught that if you seriously doubt the narrative, any essential element of the narrative, then you might offend the creator of the universe. And if you offend him, he might just smite you. And if he smites you, it might be in some extreme way and forever, right? And in the meantime, they've attached their ego to the narrative so that they've woven the two together so that when you challenge the narrative, they feel like you're challenging the framework and the premise of what makes them worth anything, right? Their entire sense of worth and identity are tied up in religious narratives. Then you can no longer challenge the narrative without them feeling threatened and offended. And because of the way that framework solidifies them into place, right? Because they effectively become hostage to the religious narrative because they stand to lose a lot if the narrative is disproven. And because of that, they will aggressively defend it no matter what. If you come up with facts that don't match the narrative, well, then your facts must be wrong because the narrative must be right. If you come up with logic that they can't refute, that they can't disassemble, then your logic must be irrelevant, right? They'll switch. It's interesting in those discussions. They start off saying, "Oh, we love facts. Oh, we love logic, right? Oh, we love ethics. Bring us that, and let's watch. Let's observe how all these things reinforce my narrative. They prove my narrative true." But then when the data doesn't do that, when the logic doesn't do that, when the ethics don't do that, they switch to, "Oh, well, you have to throw all that stuff away. It doesn't matter. Your data must be wrong. And if I can't defeat your logic, well, God's ways are higher than our ways. His mind is not like our mind. We shouldn't expect it to conform to human logic," right? 5 minutes ago, human logic was going to prove their theology, and now that it's refuted their theology, logic can go fuck itself, right? And this is the problem. So scrolling back down, let me see what Mitchell has to say. What exactly are you standing on? I've given you a perfect example, and y'all just find ways of dancing around the evidence. What's a good perfect example? I think I missed it. I'm going back and forth with Sydney, not the speaker, says Mitchell McCall. Mitchell says, if you honestly look up all the archaeological evidence, there is nothing more thoroughly provable in history than the life, death, and resurrection of Yeshua, the other name for Jesus. We've got Kentucky Atheists in the house. Joe says,
Yeah.
"What's up, old fuckers? Your facts are wrong." My favorite argument, says Joe, the Kentucky Atheist, who should really come on here if he's up for it. Sydney says, go ahead.
Could I interject something here?
Oh,
so what I keep running into, like every time I listen to them talk about evolution or creationism or something in the Bible, they're always talking about you haven't disproven or you haven't proven. So it's proof. And science doesn't do proof. Science does hypothesis and falsification. So falsification is the most positive thing you can do to a theory is throw it out, right? You never prove it.
Yes,
You're
Joe.
always open.
Grab that link, Joe. Come on in.
Anyway.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the link is pinned. It shows how they have basically presupposed what they believe, and now they're just trying to prove it, right? Rather than take it as a hypothesis and be open to having it falsified.
Right.
Which if you like, and that's a weird thing about me and evolution, right? When they say, oh, you just believe evolution, you just want to, it's like, no, I actually don't believe evolution. I have a hypothesis and I'm waiting for somebody to falsify it.
Right.
But it hasn't been so far. All I find is support for the hypothesis. The more support I have, the more sure I am about it, right? But it's never this thing about I'm going to prove evolution. I don't even know how the hell you do that. So anyway,
you have all these
diatribe.
And you have all these great minds working on evolution, and you have Lee Strobel,
and they're all trying to
Hawaiian
falsify
shirt
shit.
Guy out there trying to falsify it. Not.
Well,
they're not doing any like you said, they're not doing any respectable science.
They're not trying to falsify it. They want to come up with these one-liners, these one-off little tiny things, right?
Quips.
And they want to say, "Oh, this disproves it." It's like, no, it fucking doesn't. It doesn't work that way. Anyway.
Hey, Joe, how you doing?
What's up, guys?
Hey, Joe.
I really want to sing that.
Bunch of old guys sitting around chatting.
I really want to sing that Jimi Hendrix song. Hey, Joe.
It's one of my favorite songs, actually, Scott.
It's a good one.
Yep. I love what you're talking about here because I think this is common. A lot of, especially creationist apologists, come forward and say, I completely embrace science and accept science and all this stuff. But then they say, well, evolution, that's not science. They try to disqualify it in usually very fallacious ways.
Right. Agreed. Yeah. I'm just still thinking about using Lee Strobel as some sort of citation. That's just not.
I understand how in Christian fundamentalist circles he's revered, right? Oh, we can't wait to share us some Lee Strobel with the world. But what they need to understand is that in academia and amongst atheists who are well versed in the academia, it doesn't fly. Like the moment you say Lee Strobel, you do lose credibility points.
Yeah. He reminds me of the detectives on Law and Order SVU for some reason. I don't know why. Because he comes off like like a detective, and it's like, oh my God, he's just horrible. Don't ever mention him again on this channel, please.
Right. Now,
rule.
So Mitchell McCall says they were a skeptic for their whole life, and say that it takes more faith to disprove the existence of a creator than to look at creation and self-admit this wasn't an accident. Now, I have to wonder.
What I mean? There he is with the proof thing again, right?
The proof thing again, and also with the topic shift, right? We weren't even on this topic.
Yeah.
So I can hear
Scott,
somebody.
Are you typing?
Oh, I thought I had y'all muted. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. You do.
I repent in dust and ashes.
That's fair. So here's the thing, Mitchell McCall. We're not trying to disprove the existence of a creator with anything being discussed here today, right? For the sake of argument, let's just grant deism. We can shelve that. Okay, yay, deism. Now what? Now what you got, right? Yeah. Because everything that we've said here would still stand to reason, even if we assume deism.
And if you're hearing from God, please tell God to give a prophecy that isn't so vague that it reads like a horoscope, and we might take it a little more seriously.
Yeah.
Call them up and have them strike me dead today, and then we'll all be believers, right?
Yeah, sure, why not? I like it.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, what the fuck? I don't care. I'll take one for the team.
That's fair.
And I've put it out there. I even made a short video about it. And I've asked numerous people, including Christians and Muslim channels I've been on, if your book is prophetic, give us a prophecy that happens after you tell us with some specificity. Let's write it down right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And let's set that date, and we'll do a stream on that date, and we'll see what happens. It's as simple
That
as
would be cheating, though. That would be cheating.
No, that's not how it works. And it's like, well, then it's worthless.
You have to have faith in him before he gives you proof, right? Then he'll give you some proof after you have faith in him. Right?
Yeah, Scott well demonstrated. If you're going to read into it what you want, again, it's like a horoscope. You can mix and match it to anybody or anything at any time and make it fit.
I think he means God, or the creator of the universe. Ask him right now if Mitchell's telling the truth.
Hey, God, is Mitchell telling the truth?
He put me on hold.
God said no. God said no.
It's funny because this is kind of the state of apologetics in general right now, is that it say things like it takes more faith to be an atheist or to attack science or the atheist position rather than to defend the indefensible Bible, right?
Yeah. Yep. And actually, I have a lot of faith in my life. So I don't know what the hell they're talking about with this faith bullshit, because I just don't have faith in God, or I don't have faith, quote, X in X, quote, unquote. I just have faith in my life. I just have spiritual faith. I just have faith that everything is working exactly like it should. Even last Tuesday, God, I hate to admit it, but this too is the universe unfolding as it should.
Poor Mike.
How do you define
I think it's the revenge of the whales is what's happening here, right? The whales are finally going to get their fucking revenge on us.
Yes, they are.
How do you define spiritual, Mark?
Me?
Yeah.
Spiritual is like it's a emotion or feeling, that more than an emotion. It's sort of a state of being where you are completely relaxed and as if you're leaning back, like you're leaning back into the universe. You're falling backwards into the universe, and everything is absolutely okay, whatever happens. Like when you take your next move or live your next hour, whatever happens is completely okay with you. Even if some fucking
that's Nirvana,
pussy grabbing asshole gets elected president. Yeah, I mean that takes a lot, but
it's a physical mental state, you would say.
Yeah, it is definitely a state of being or a state that your mind gets into when you practice, and that's what it's been about for the writings in the last 3, 4, 6,000 years in Buddhism and Hinduism and everything. This is what it's been about. It's been about this state of being that where you are no longer fighting everything, where you're just living your life. And if you want to look at a real good, pure example of faith, go look at your average raccoon or squirrel, because that's the way all our other animals live. Man is sort of fallen because we can think about the future, and it fucks us up. And we sit around, and not only can we think about the future, but we can plan. We can make plans to take over the world. We can do shit like that. And when you have faith, you don't have any of that shit going on in your brain. You're just living your life.
Are you talking to the raccoons again?
Yeah.
Are you talking to the raccoons again?
Does that explain it a little better, Joe?
Yeah. I think I have no beef with spirituality. I was just curious because you said it. Can I recommend a book?
Yeah.
A Spiritual Solution to Every Problem.
Okay.
You can probably find like a PDF of it for free somewhere, honestly.
Okay.
It's an interesting book. I read it, and it helped me to better understand spirituality in that way, like kind of how you're explaining.
You're familiar with the 12.
Oh, sure.
You're familiar with the 12-step program, Joe, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, that is like a step-by-step methodology for attaining this state of being where you accept everything. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen page 417 of the big book where it talks about acceptance. Acceptance is the answer to all of my problems. And it goes on and on about, how basically you quit fighting the world and you just sort of like, you fall into the groove of what you can do, accepting the things that you cannot change, and the courage to change the things you can. I mean, it's just it's so obvious that this is a state. Yeah, it's a state of being for human beings, and it fucking works. And you don't got to believe in any bullshit or dogma to get there, right?
No,
and that's what people are missing. Right?
So I would say things like I would say emotions can be. It's another word for like extreme emotions, even. That book I recommended does have like a religious basis to it, but it does a really good job of explaining spirituality in multiple religions, and it has where they did studies of having people in the town square meditate on positive things and negative things, and there's a lot of interesting stuff in it. Is it by Wayne Dyer? Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The really interesting thing that I discovered back when I was commuting about 30 years ago into Minneapolis and back, like 50 miles, and I would let somebody in traffic, and then I would let another person in, and I would do all these kind gestures to people, and it was almost like a ripple of karma went out ahead of me, and when I arrived at work, I had a much better day, and everyone was a lot nicer. And it wasn't that anybody else changed, but I changed. I mean, something about me, because I didn't fucking fight anybody in traffic. And if I'd fought anybody in traffic, I would have went to work and I still would have been fighting shit, and it's just like, but it was really an amazing experience. So then I found out that if I just take a few simple steps early in the morning to set the tone of my how I'm going to approach the world treats me a fuck of a lot better, it seems, but the world hasn't changed at all. I have. And
the power of positive thinking. Yes.
Something like that. Yeah. And I always say it turns on a dime. I mean, you can either just look, at the glass fucking half empty, or, you could decide to look the other way. And when bad shit happens to you, you could just say, okay, whatever happens, I'm going to accept it. It's okay. And I did this when I found out I had cancer, and I didn't I had some anxiety here and there, but I mean, it was nowhere near what I would have had 30 years ago,
Yeah. So can I tell a brief story, like 2 minutes?
Yeah. Yes.
So the thing that I got from that is I used to have a really bad temper, and I've been to jail and prison and a drug addict, all those things about me. But the thing that I learned to do was, rather than immediately act out on emotion whenever something happens, is to train myself to stop and ask the question, does this really affect me in some major way? Does it affect whether I live or die? Does it affect those that I love, their safety, things like that? And not specifically necessarily, just what effect does it have on me? And I trained myself to ask that question every time I started to get upset. And after a period of time, it started to be automatic, that I was then able to approach things in a more positive way. And so I completely agree that there's there's a lot to that, and it's a very, very helpful tool to be able to understand your emotions, embrace them, and also to realize the effect that they have on you. Because having a negative attitude, it may not be this supernatural thing. It's going to affect the way you approach life, though, and what life sends back at you.
Right.
So yeah, I agree, Mike. I think that's good stuff.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
too.
and this thing with immigration, right? You know, like the immigrants are coming and they're killing us and they're eating the cats and they're eating the dogs, and every day I open my front door and I look and I see, are there any immigrants out there? And one day there was a whole truckload of them that arrived, and they jumped on my neighbor's house and they tore his roof off. But then they put it back on. It looked better than before. And then
they were
left.
looking for cats and dogs, and they didn't find any. So
I guess so. But anyway, that was the only immigrants I've ever fucking seen. And I have to ask myself, am I affected by any of this bullshit that people are trying to get me to freak out about and fucking, vote for me, I'll fix this? It's like, wait a minute. I don't got anything that needs fixing. Sorry. Anyway.
Yeah.
I've got grass growing in the cracks in my street out front, and it's been that way.
Yes.
Dave has grass in his crack.
Grass is killing the pets. It's killing the dogs. It's killing the cats.
And they've redone roads all around here, but not ours.
Yeah. Like when you look at every problem in politics that way, and you start looking, like I used to be a real Rush Limbaugh Republican, right? Back when I was paying like $50,000 a year in income taxes, right? It really pissed me off. And I started listening to Rush Limbaugh, and he had all these things, right? And then at some point, one at a time, I started taking them and saying, does this really affect me? Do I really have any evidence of this? Do I give a fuck about this? And it was no. And all of a sudden, I'm not a Republican anymore.
I used to listen to Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck every morning on AM radio.
Oh, yeah. Fuck yeah. And then we had Joe Souchere in Minneapolis, and he called Minneapolis the liberal lakes. He was funny as hell, and he was cool. And he had some spot on stuff about, some of the political correct bullshit that went on. But anyway, yeah, I used to listen to all that crap. And then one day I just quit listening to Rush because I heard him contradict himself so fucking badly that I just shut him off and never listened to him again.
Buddy of mine had a ditto head bumper sticker and everything.
Yeah,
I was listening to rock and roll on FM. So sorry.
The guy I worked with cutting meat listened to AM radio all day while we cut meat in the cutting room, and so that's why I listened. I didn't really by choice, but actually, even though I'm progressive, I would say, I still found it really interesting and even entertaining sometimes. So I don't have any problem.
And James always take me back to my dad, either working on something at his workbench, or when we were out on the boat, we would always have the radio on just in case.
Did anybody watch that documentary where this woman did a thing on her father? He started to listen to AM radio and Fox News and all that shit, and he became crazier and more racist and just shittier and shittier. And then finally, her and her mother fooled him and said the radio was broken, and then he changed back, to the left because he wasn't listening to it every day. And it was really a good documentary. It was a kind of a case study in what you put into your head is going to fuck you up. It's it's going to change you. So. I heard something.
Yeah, there's definitely a level of the whenever you just subject yourself to right-wing media. I mean, it's indoctrination like anything else.
Yeah.
And I think that exists within left-wing media too, just not to the same extent.
Yeah, I heard them do I watched some videos right before the election where they had a tagline about Trump doing something, and then I listened to it. It's like, no, he didn't fucking do that. So there's bias on both sides. and you have to mix it up, and you have to be really careful what you listen to, But then I started listening to Trump himself, and that was like, holy shit. You don't have to listen to anything else. Just listen to the man.
Matt Gaetz is AG.
Oh, my God. I can't believe the clown show he's putting together. This fucking country is in so much trouble right now that, Jesus Christ. Oh, my God. Talk about burn it all down. What
does Mike Pillow get out of this? That's what I'm waiting for.
I was
they're going to put him in charge of the fucking the nuclear codes, probably.
I was on Skeptics Spin with J.L. Warren and Nick Souter from In Time. I guess that's how you pronounce his last name. But they were talking about they didn't think he would really appoint RFK, and they didn't think he would do this and that. And I said, what is the deal, guys? This is the shit that got us in this. You don't want to listen to what they're saying. He's saying he's going to do it. Why are you not taking him at his word? And
now he's doing it.
Sure enough,
he's gonna do it.
He's gonna do those things. He's been very clear about it. And
I told my dentist the other day, hey, I heard you're going to get a whole lot more business. He said, oh yeah, what's that? And I whispered in his ear that brainworm's going to take the fluoride out of the water.
Well, my problem with that approach to it, that he does the things he says he's going to do, is the day he takes office, he's having them start to round up illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
And
speaking of, if you want to know the cost of that, Thunderfoot just did a video on how much it would actually cost to do that.
That's what I'm driving at, because when he rounds up 20 million people, he says, which we know the number's not that high, but when he tries to round up 20 million people, and then it's not feasible logistically or financially to send all those people to their homes or to their countries, and he can't just dump them in some other country. They're not going to allow that. So then what does he do with those people? And I think that's where the real danger lies, because this is how it started in Germany, right?
Yeah, they insist that they're not going to do that. They said, oh, that's just bullshit. We're not going to have camps. It's like, well, we'll see.
They
had camps. They had them last time for the children, right? They had the fucking children in cages.
Yes.
Like, it's just like, Jesus Christ.
That one guy that he appointed as head of what is it, OS, I guess, but he said that they weren't going to separate families; they would just deport whole families and stuff. And it's like,
right, that's going to solve the problem.
Well, and if
they're going to deport citizens.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, if there's an issue, they should have a task force, right, where they should go after,
saying you're going to
the
do
cartel or something like that. But yeah, going after grandmas is
saying
for
you're
billions of dollars.
Saying you're going to do something like that is one thing, but like when you don't have mechanisms to do it, and we're talking about a huge number of people that you're going to detain, I think it's important to understand what mechanism you're going to use to get them to their home countries.
He wants to use the military. He wants to use the military.
The whole thing about slaves. The whole thing about, they're going to be doing, are they going to do no-knock warrants? Are they going to be busting into people's houses? Are those people going to have guns themselves? Are people going to get killed? I mean, what the fuck is going to happen? Yeah, I know. And that would, can you imagine the military driving up and down your street, going into your neighbors' houses? Can you imagine what kind of,
who's stepping all the way? Yeah.
You know what I think? You know what my prediction is that when they do this, a lot of those jobs and stuff that they're working that people don't want to work is going to affect the economy negatively. And I'm looking for him to enslave these people, to make them work for free to stay here.
Oh my God. They could hire immigrants to go door to door and hunt for immigrants, because there's they like to work. They'll do it.
That idiot already said he wants to put immigrants in cage matches, and the winner gets to stay.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Anyway, we'll see what happens. We'll see what the reality is. Maybe
He wants to pay-per-view it. You know, he's
maybe there will be sanity in Congress, and this shit will all turn out to be okay.
Well,
maybe we'll have
the Senate.
fight in hell.
The Senate did reject Trump's pick. They didn't put the Trump pick in. So there's a little glimmer of
they rejected his pick.
Yeah, the one they nominated isn't the one Trump wanted.
Well, they haven't had the confirmation hearing yet.
No.
Well, no, but the one not the nomination or whatever they gave to wasn't the Trump guy. So
I think that when it comes time for confirmation hearings, they just approve all of them 100%, no questions asked.
They can't fucking possibly do this. Matt Gaetz, my goodness.
I just don't think you can say can't anymore. I don't think anything's impossible. I think you can't predict any kind of behavior because these are MAGA.
I'm really excited about what's going to happen on January 20th because, I'm running out of shit to watch on Netflix. That's really good drama.
By the way, I'm on the last episode of Grotesquerie.
Well, really? I haven't watched that. I quit watching and I started watching Arcane.
When Trump was in office before, my son and I often eat dinner together, and I would say, "Put on the Trump show," and he would know. Turn on the news.
Yeah. Fuck. Anyway, strange new world. Well, exciting. Something new and exciting. We'll see what happens.
That is true.
He's going to add more money to the debt than he did the last time, which was a record amount, and do nothing else.
Well, they've been bitching for years and years, and now they have the trifecta. Now let's see what the fuckers can do. Let's see what they do with the world. And proof is in the pudding. So
even a lot of conservatives have been critical of where the conservative party has gone to blowing.
And now that they do have all three, Trump doesn't have to be this authoritarian fascist. I mean, he has the ability now to be one of the most effective, best presidents in history. But I don't think that's the way it's going to go.
No, he's never been the most effective best to anything.
Well, no, but I mean, if he has both houses, he has the House and the Senate. He has the potential anyway. If that's what he wanted, if it wasn't, it's all based on hate and emotional appeal with him. But I mean, he has the opportunity to actually do good things. But
he's always 2 weeks short, though. He always needs 2 more weeks. He's always getting just 2 weeks short of doing
his health plan, right?
For 9 years.
For 9 years, 9 years his health plan.
2 more weeks. 2 more weeks.
Oh my God, Mitchell McCall. What is consciousness? Is that natural? Yeah, it is, Mitchell. If you read as much about philosophy of the mind as I have, you would probably not be here saying shit about consciousness.
Yeah.
We pretty much agree that all these things that you're going to bring up, like you can't prove love and all these things like that are in the brain. So that's where it is.
2.5 hours, guys, and it's beautiful outside, and I'd kind of like to end.
Crappy here. Good. You're lucky.
Is it? Oh, it's sunny, and it's like 53. It's supposed to be 54 today. It ain't that bad. I got to go for a walk. Anyway, can we get out?
Yep.
Okay.
Good when you are, man.
Yep. Anyone else?
Scott, once again, I think you did an awesome.
You did a really good job.
Very thorough. You covered all the bases, and you were very fair. You weren't obnoxious about it or anything. Well done.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. If anybody who's watching has a comment to make in the comments, please do that. Mitchell McCall will be looking to see if you can provide some links that support your notion of. Although I think we did finally decide the Dead Sea Scrolls was what it was about, but what was your point? Why don't you do a comment and reiterate your point so I can kind of understand what you think the complete Isaiah scroll in the Dead Sea Scrolls accomplished.
And if you want more of the discussion, a lot of us same folks get together on Saturday evenings at 5 Eastern.
He just brought up the double slit experiment. My goodness, I'm just like, we're going to leave you alone, Mitchell. We're going to leave you alone. I'm just going to be mean from here on out, so let's not do it.
I'm going live right now. So.
Join us.
You're going live?
It's Friday, right? It's Friday.
Right? Hey, everybody head over to Joe's channel.
Where's the Joe's link, Joe? and come over to us tomorrow for Saturday night at the Atheists.
I'll put the link in chat. I'm going to take a break and go. We're going
to take an apologetics lesson, and we're going to learn the other side, and we're going to be fair and open-minded,
like
and learn the other side that we're accused of not learning. Okay?
I'll put the link in chat here for Joe's channel. So you're going live now, Joe?
Yeah, I'm setting up the stream right now.
Okay, we're going dead now.
Okay.
Okay.
Talk to y'all later.
See y'all.
Goodbye, cruel world.
Bye. Bye, everybody.